these different people, and it wasn't until after the All-Star break you see them as they currently are. And again, remember, they still instituted 3 new guys, getting Isaiah Thomas, Tommy, and Jerebko on after the trade deadline. So I mean, and all 3 of those guys, with the exception of Tommy doesn't play as much, but Jerebko and Thomas all get plus minutes. To me, that really is a hell of a coaching job. But you're right, he's not going to get any consideration. Maybe he gets a couple third-place votes somehow from somewhere, maybe from the Boston media. And I understand that. I think he understands that as well. But I think in terms of raw coaching job and what he did from start to finish with what he was given, he did one of the best jobs in the NBA this season.
And Warren, so I remember at the beginning off season there was a lot of talk going around because I believe Kevin Love even stopped by Boston to talk to them when he was looking at other teams. And I saw some articles that thought if the Celtics can rattle the Cavs enough to make them upset, that they thought maybe those Love rumors would surface again, and then maybe the Celtics would be able to attract him in the offseason this year. Do you think there's anything with that, or are those just actually rumors?
I think it's hopeful and wishful thinking on the Boston part of things there. Nobody really knows what's going on in the mind of Kevin Love, and everyone knows he's a great talent. Ainge came out recently on a radio show in Boston and said that there was no secret that they were trying to get Love, but he said nothing was close.
Right.
And I don't know. Again, if they rattle the cage as you say here, and maybe they force it 6 games or something like that, or the Cavs somehow don't win the championship, and he's unhappy, he may really seek to leave. But nobody really knows what's going on with Kevin Love, and it's all speculation. Right. As a fan, I'd love to see that happen, and I think he'd be a great fit, obviously, and we can definitely use the guy, and then help us attract other free agents. But no one knows what's happening in that situation, so it's hard to kind of speak to it realistically. I'd love to see it. He's actually one of my favorite players in the league, but he's not being used right in Cleveland. But I don't think he's going to run just because times are hard, and especially if they somehow win a championship. I can't see him leaving that situation.
Oh, I mean, I got to agree with you. I just think that the Cavaliers have grossly misused Kevin Love's talents. But bringing it back a little bit to the Boston Celtics, they were able to end the Cavaliers' title hopes in 2008 and 2010. Now, is there any dark horse of a chance that that'll happen again? Is there any? How can the Celtics win this series? What would it take?
Well, it would take a lot of Cleveland not playing up to their abilities. So one of the things we discussed on our show was, what are the chances that maybe Kyrie and Kevin Love, get in their first playoff series and, just don't perform up to snuff? LeBron, in essence, can't do it by himself. The rest of the roster is talented, but they need those other two guys to really help out. And one of the things that, again, I'm going to, paraphrase my man here, Dan Devine, he says, when those 3 guys were on the lineup, Boston had no chance. I think the plus minus was ridiculous. It was astronomical. So those 3 players playing against what Boston has on their front line just weren't able to produce against them. So unless, again, Love and Kyrie really struggle throughout the series, because I can see them struggling maybe in game 1, never been in the playoffs before, oh my God, the pressure, et cetera, et cetera. But after a while, and sometimes that only lasts even a quarter. Sometimes, true professionals, they get those jitters out of the way. And the Celtics don't have anybody to really stay in front of Kyrie like that. Avery Bradley is not the defender that he once was. He's become more offensive minded, so he doesn't have the ability to really stay in front of a guy like Kyrie, and nobody does. So that's not really a knock on Boston Celtics or their defense in any way, shape, or form. It's just, like I said, it's just going to be so tough. One of the things too is that Boston plays roughly 9 or 10 guys each night, and playoff rotations usually shortened. Stevens is going to have to kind of push the right buttons and see in there who can get hot. Isaiah Thomas is going to have to score a boatload of points, roughly in maybe the 25 to 28 point range each game to keep Boston in this offensively. It's really an uphill battle. But again, unless Kevin Love and Kyrie struggle, I can't see how Boston pulls this out.
Well, speaking of Isaiah Thomas, with him, since he's been traded over to the Celtics, he's been putting up around 20 points and 5 assists off the bench. How do you think the Cavs are going to address limiting him offensively?
I think they're going to use length, pretty much primarily. Kyrie will obviously see some minutes on him, but they will be in at varying points of the game. But I think Shumpert is going to be a guy who sees a lot of time on him. I think in the one game where when we saw these two teams in their current form, Shumpert did play a lot of minutes on Isaiah and made it tough for him, because of his length and because of his size. And Shumpert's not too concerned about getting his own offense. So, I mean, you have a guy who can just kind of sacrifice himself defensively and focus on the other guys, other team's key guy. That bodes well for your defense. And in key moments too, something else that was said on our show is that, if it came down to, let's say Boston is in the game, at the end of it, somehow late in the fourth quarter and, it's close, then they always have the option to try to have LeBron try to stick your point guard, try to shut him down and do those types of things. But Shumpert's going to see the bulk of the minutes on Isaiah on a regular basis throughout the series.
So, bringing that up, you're talking about matchups. My thing is, so say you're the coach of the Celtics, who do you put on Love, Kyrie, and LeBron? Who's going to be guarding them the most during this series, do you think?
Well, on Love, I think you're going to see a combination of guys, just kind of depending on how they want to use them. Obviously, the primary matchup there would be Bass, but you may see some cross matches here and there. Zeller might be able to go out there and defend him, but I think another guy who's going to get a lot of time too is Olynyk. But Olynyk fouls like I think he has like the second or first highest foul rate in the league. And although he's mobile, I think that would be one of the matchups that you try to do with Kevin Love. And then at the point guard position, it's going to be real tight. Marcus Smart is going to be huge for us. There's been some confidence of Smart being kind of a jack of all trades too, where he may see some time on Kyrie, he may see some time on LeBron. And the LeBron thing is scary because, obviously because of the size differential, but they just feel like LeBron doesn't like to post up enough, so they may try to do that. But then that leaves you with a cross matchup, either Evan Turner going to Kyrie, or again, you can put Bradley on Kyrie, which might be a better matchup there if you move Smart all the way to guard the ball forward. Brad Stevens has to get creative. And I think what you want to do here is you probably want to try to force the ball out of LeBron's hands one way or the other. And whether that's Evan Turner and a combination of Marcus Smart or whatever the case may be, even going back a little bit to the previous series, Brandon Bass spent some time on LeBron when LeBron was in Miami. That had varying results at times, especially when LeBron decided to put his head down and go to the rim. Bass wasn't able to stay in front of him. So I say you're going to see all kinds of cross matches, and you're just going to see what works in that moment. I don't know that there's going to be any one formula like, okay, well, this is what's going to be all the time. If something is working for 4 minutes and it stops, then I think Steven's going to try to change that. And he's going to have to because, they're tough offensively, man. And, you need all hands on deck. And the guy I didn't even mention is Jay Crowder, too, who will probably see some time on some of their big guys as well.
It's interesting. The Celtics have gone on this run and got into the playoffs. They're kind of the Cinderella story. And this despite the fact that they're only shooting about 33% beyond the three-point line since they brought IT in at the trade deadline. I guess my question is, why has three-point shooting been such an issue for them, and how have they made up for that to get this hot and go on this run?
Well, they play with a nice pace. They get up and down the court. They finish fifth in the league in terms of pace. They get a lot of possessions. And the one thing, too, that helped them out tremendously this year is that they've cut down their turnovers. They were one of the worst turnover-prone teams in the league the last 2 seasons, and Brad Stevens has really been able to control the team. And you figured that wouldn't be the case because Evan Turner played point guard a good part of the season. Marcus Smart is a rookie, but they were really kind of able to get the ball in other guys' hands and keep it moving. And that's how they manufacture points. There's a lot of emphasis on ball movement and back screens, pick and roll to some degree. But it really is, you see the bigs really kind of able to make that reverse pivot and kick out to the backside. And then, Avery Bradley started doing his cutting thing again too, getting into the lane. So that's how they've been able to score offensively. The benches have been huge. But again, the 3-point shot isn't something that they're amazing at. Crowder can shoot it. Isaiah Thomas can shoot it. Again, not very, very high percentages per se, but Boston manufactures points from ball movement and ball reversal. And that's how they're going to have to do it against Cleveland. You have to make that defense run up and down. And you hopefully, the guys who are not defensively capable, like Kyrie and Kevin Love, you hope that they maybe, get a little bit weary and then you can get some easy baskets that way.
Yeah, I haven't seen as much of Isaiah Thomas since he got traded over to the Celtics, since he left my Suns. But one of my issues with Isaiah Thomas was he just has kind of tunnel vision. He looks down when he dribbles, and I feel like that makes it a little bit harder to run that pick and roll. Now, if you're Brad Stevens, I feel like there's two different ways that you can approach trying to at least make this a competitive series. And one is that you shut down LeBron James and make everyone else beat you. And the other one is that you shut down everyone else and have LeBron James beat you. Which, if you were Brad Stevens and you had to pick between those two options, is there one that you think they have a better chance of actually doing?
I would ideally I'd love to see them shut down LeBron James and have everyone else try to beat the Celtics because they haven't done it before. And if you lose that way, then you kind of tip your cap and say, all right, cool. What I mean, hey, you haven't been here before. You performed in this series, great. But you don't give the guy who's a multiple MVP and arguably still the best player in the game. You don't let him beat you. You don't just say, all right, go ahead and do what you want to do. I think guys like, again, as we keep mentioning, Kyrie and Kevin Love, they have to prove themselves in this scenario. And Moskov and all of them. Shumpert too. I know he has some playoff experience. J.R. Smith, obviously he's going to shoot the three ball and all of that, but he can shoot you in and out of the games, as we well know.
Yeah, they're chuckers.
Yeah, I mean, that's the strategy that I would go to, like, have those other guys beat you who haven't done it before, and if they get hot, then again, you tip your cap.
Yep, yeah, okay, 3, 2, 1. You still there, right?
Yep.
Okay, 3, 2. Okay, so keeping it on. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Keeping it on 3-point shooting. Now, do you think that if Smart and Bradley can limit the Cavs 3-point shooting, limit J.R. Smith, limit Kevin Love to the best of their ability, like, are these going to be, if they can at least limit the 3-point shooting? I do think that this is going to be a sweep, but do you think that the games can at least be competitive?
No.
No.
I mean, again, I really want to believe, and and it's hard to say that you're a Celtics fan and say, they have no chance, but they really are. Cleveland is just a better team, and if they're focused and if they're engaged, they can really win the series on sheer will. And can it be competitive? I'm sure. Maybe the games in Boston will probably be. Because obviously you have that home crowd, that energy, and all those things going for you. And then hopefully, you're trying to show some pride. You don't want to get swept out of the series. So in that regard, I think we'll see some competitive games here and there. But I think there'll be some massive blowouts in this series. And Cleveland might really try to come out and send a message, especially in Game 1. There was something that happened. I don't know if you saw it when they played the last game. I believe it was like a week or so ago, when LeBron and all those guys rested in Boston. Evan Turner said something to LeBron. I still don't know what it is. Wasn't able to find it on social media or anything like that. But it was kind of one of those things that they're dapping up after the game, and everyone's like, all right, man, good game, all right, see you soon. And he said something to LeBron. LeBron's like, what? Oh, and he's like, really? A word? Like as if he was saying something, I can't wait to see you in the playoffs or something like that. Nobody really knows what was said, but he said something to LeBron, and LeBron gave him that face, like, okay, all right, that's what you really want right now? And I'm a little nervous.
Well, I'm not surprised. I know that I've seen the Cavs fans and the Celtics fans going at it on Twitter. And I know that we've taken up a bunch of your time, Warren. So I just have 2 more questions for you before we bounce out of here. Kevin and I, we have very differing opinions on the methods in which a team can rebuild. And we debated all season long if the Celtics should really embrace the rebuild or if signing Isaiah Thomas was a good thing and getting the young squad some playoff experience. If you were the GM of the Celtics, would you have signed Isaiah Thomas and gotten into the playoffs, or would you have tanked for that better lottery pick this year?
I'm not. I got to be honest with you. I'm not a big Isaiah Thomas fan per se. I do really, like I said, he has tunnel vision and has limited ability to score. I mean, to create for other players.
Yeah, he does.
But yeah, again, in a certain role as your sixth man, he can definitely help you out. So I probably wouldn't have traded for him. And not to say necessarily tank per se. I just felt like, the team was still doing fairly well, especially going into the All-Star break. They had that big win against Atlanta, and we're ready try to roll things out. Stevens even said before that, he said, listen, I remember this another quote that happened in the game. He said, listen, don't trade anybody else. He said that to Danny Ainge, like they caught him on tape after that game saying, don't trade anybody else. I like these guys. And sure enough, a week later, Isaiah Thomas and Jerebko and Comey. So,
well, I know they got rid of Marcus Thornton, and I know that's kind of a big contract for the style of player he was, and he had kind of a disappointing season once he ended up going over and playing for the Suns. Well, I appreciate that. And just real quick, so the Baseline podcast, for anybody that's listening to the show right now, Tell us about it. What do you guys do? Where can we find you? I know you are personally on Twitter at Shaw Sports NBA, but the Baseline Podcast, what makes the Baseline Podcast stand out from all the other basketball podcasts around?
Well, we were talking about it just on previous shows. Like, we have a lot of fun on our show for sure. It's not necessarily barbershop style, but it's definitely, it's barbershop style maybe with some analytics. You know what I mean? We definitely try to bring knowledgeable guests on our show as well. But we still want to have fun and not talk about the boring X's and O's all the time. And just keep it diverse. So, I mean, that's what we do. We can find us on Twitter, NBA_baseline, and make sure you follow Cal Lee, the co-host of the show as well, at Game Face Lee. Yeah, man, and we definitely appreciate the time for today's show, man.
Oh, absolutely. So it's just, get on the iTunes, search the Baseline Podcast. You get baselinepodcast.com, is that?
Actually, no, the Baseline does not have its own website just yet. A lot of the stuff is being filtered through shawsports.net and CLNS Radio as well. But definitely, you said, if you follow us on Twitter, we'll get you the links out. We tweet them out incessantly. You know what I mean? So we're definitely proponents of our own show, and definitely your guys' show as well, man. So I appreciate the time this weekend, man, and enjoy the playoffs.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
seriously, guys, they love analytics. What more needs to be said? We love analytics.
Yeah, I'm the nerd on that. CL is kind of like, he's more of the eye test guy, but I'm definitely the kind of the analytics nerd. But it works, you know what I mean? You got to kind of have that balance in both.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Warren. We really appreciate it. Again, you can find Warren at Shaw Sports NBA, and enjoy Record Store Day, and playoffs they're fucking here, man.
Amazing, great time, fellas. Have a good one. Enjoy the playoffs.
All right,
See you,
Shaw.
man.